Hello guys, it's Peter from Pssound, and this is going to be a long explanation video that I'm very sure that many of you have been waiting for. You could see from our previous video, which I'm sure some of you enjoyed. Hopefully it was something new. You could see this car in the background and you could see that something new was in it compared to the last video you could see on YouTube. Many of you who follow our work on Instagram and Facebook, if you search for Pssound, if you're not a follower, then you can find the work that went into this project in this car, which is my current car, daily driver. And in this one, I try to explain to you what went into it and all the decisions what we had to make in order to get to a pretty crazy level where the system is. Many of you know us. We always push the boundaries. We want to do always something special to get the best out of any system, whether it's a cheap system or something pretty exclusive. And in this car, finally we had a platform where we could go wild without doing many modifications or without showing anything to your eyes. So this is the first crazy project where we went with an OEM design. In the interior you can't see any changes, but you will see in this video all the behind the scene pictures, all the work that went into it. So as I always said, that in order to get the best listening experience, most important thing is to create an environment. And this platform, this S-Class, is super quiet on the road, and you will have a video coming up in a couple of days I will share with you where we also did a little test, because first this car didn't really require much treatment when it comes to soundproofing. This car is one of the quietest cars on the road. When I bought it, a couple of the guys on our Patreon channel sent a video to me, more exactly a link to me of a German test that was done back in the day between many different type of cars, not just high profile cars, but anything from lower class all the way up. And this car came out on the top as the quietest platform, even winning over the Rolls-Royce Phantom, because you would think that that's a very quiet car, and it is. But they were checking many things. It was a long list of little things that they were checking and then pulling a line at the bottom and averaging the scores. And the Phantom only lost out because it had a big V12 engine, and when you accelerate, that is louder for the obvious reasons. Whereas I think they were testing the petrol engine of this, which is even quieter. This car is the 3-liter diesel, which is very common in Europe, more economical, but considering it's a diesel, it's super quiet. And when you cruise, you don't hear anything on the road from this engine. It's stunning to drive. So, being the quietest on the road, we still went a bit further, and a couple of weeks ago we had a test when we soundproofed the doors in addition, which we didn't do at the beginning because there was no bass driver in the door. We thought, why would we add weight? The sheet metal on this car is already way thicker than on other cars, and then from the video you will see after this, when we did that test, when we soundproofed the doors all around and we measured the car on the road before the treatment and after, to see how sound treating the doors can change the road noise, or it cannot. So that's going to be an interesting test to see for you, what before and after measurements we can show to you. But that's just a little thing about the environment. Controlling the environment, making it quiet, is super important. Okay, let's dig deep and see what's in this car. So when I was looking for my future car, I wanted a platform that ticks many boxes. So it's a quiet, comfortable cruiser. We drive a lot, long distances as well. Sometimes we drive like 1,200 miles in one hit. So it has to be comfortable. So I knew that it would be something like an S-Class, an A8, or a BMW 7 Series, something like that. Or Lexus also has something similar up at this level, but it had to be a car that was also suitable for audio, where we didn't have to change many things when it comes to speaker installation, and we could keep everything factory looking. And also here in the boot, we could fit everything I wanted to create a ultra high-end audio experience without losing the practicality of the boot. So this car is the only one out of all the options where there is a spare wheel well. The spare wheel well did not have a spare wheel. None of these cars have a spare wheel. Most of them have a battery down in the spare wheel, or like the BMW 7 Series doesn't even have anything underneath the floor. It's a flat floor. I guess they have the exhaust and everything else underneath it, so they couldn't create a wheel well that goes deeper. In this car, the battery used to live down there, but now we have some other stuff down here. Let me show to you guys. We have a big 15-inch subwoofer down there, and we talk about that in a second. So when we first started this project, even in the previous video I shared more than a year ago, when we had a very simple audio system upgrade in this car, which was still doing amazing things, already showed to us that the platform works. And all we needed to do to relocate the battery that was down there, and it only required an extra battery plate that we could put over there behind the amp rack, which is a factory location for the battery. These cars come with a hybrid option as well. So that's where you would have two batteries, one on each side behind the seat. And that takes up a bit more space in the hybrid. You don't lose too much boot space, but it means that you can buy the factory tray for the battery. It cost me something like £50. I could board the tray in and I could relocate the battery without cutting any of the power cables, anything. I just had to lift the battery over that location, and that way we had all this space freeing up. Of course, in order to fit this 15-inch subwoofer in true IB, many of you have seen videos from us, but if it's a new thing to you, then in order to make this subwoofer work, we had to cut the bottom of the car. So that might be frightening to some of you who hear about something like that. So underneath the car, we have an 11-inch hole underneath this driver to let this subwoofer breathe to the outside, but it's fully protected. We have ring guard foam in place, which is like professional audio speakers also have. You can search for PA speaker grill foam. Speaker grill foam. That's what you have to search for. And you will find that foam that doesn't let any water come through. Of course, if you drive into a huge flood, it will flow through, but any vapor, moisture, any spill cannot go through it. It just stops on the surface and it's transparent for the sound. So the sub can breathe and the water cannot come up. Also, when you drive, if you think about it, you have a vector direction moving forward, nothing can go up. So everything just flows underneath the car. That keeps the subwoofer perfectly protected, and we had many cars with this solution. None of them had problems. But as I mentioned, yes, you have to be conscious that you don't want to drive into a deeper flood than 10 inches. That you shouldn't do anyway. With this subwoofer, we get something out of this car that those who have heard true IB systems, they can tell that this is a very efficient way to produce the low end of the frequency range in the most effortless way. So for me, this was like primary factor to buy a car. Once you fall in love with true IB application for a subwoofer, there's just, you know, it's difficult to live without it. So in this car, I could see I could do that. A single 15-inch sub has plenty of output. It's linear down to, you know, sub 20s. The car picks at like 16, 17 hertz, and it's still producing low end down to like 11, 12 hertz. Some of you can never imagine what it's like. The only thing I can recommend to you to come to UK, come to our meetings, book an appointment with us, come to the workshop, listen to it, or we go to plenty of competitions. We have a competition coming up in a short time in Salzburg as well, between the 18th and 20th of April in Salzburg, Messezentrum. And over there at the Eurofinals, we will have many cars, not just mine, but many other cars with similar subwoofer applications. So you can hear systems like this. So it's definitely something you have to check out. You might be thinking that, okay, this is drastic, this is crazy. But let me tell you, now many car manufacturers design subwoofers in cars in this application. They have subwoofers like Jaguar has a subwoofer through the wheel arch playing outside above the wheel, and also uses the same application. Audi R8 had the same application at the front in the firewall. And there are many other cars. Volvo has similar application. Of course, not with a 15-inch sub. They may only have a 6.5 or an 8-inch driver, but that is also very sensitive, and that way it's out of the way. It doesn't use up space in the boot. So I started to talk about the subwoofer because, of course, that's the first thing that your eyes see, and it's a very important part of any system. But we have to talk about what's happening in this setup. So the source is the OEM head unit with most integration. We have a NAV TV Most 150 Zen M box, converting the fiber optic from the OEM head unit into optical signal into our DSP. After that, we can distribute the signal from the DSP to the amplifiers, and we run a fully active system where every single speaker in the car is running off an independent amplifier channel. In daily systems, we have showed many videos. We would use a simple DSP amplifier, which can deliver amazing results. But there was a point in this project where we wanted to build something that we haven't done before. Yes, a lot of money went into it, a lot of investment, buying the car, although the car was 8-year-old, so it wasn't a new car, and buying the equipment. We wanted to build something where I knew that I cannot carry on telling people that, you know, having a Zapco 6-channel AP range amplifier or Helix C4 amps or Mosconi has the Pro amps, and there are many other amplifiers on that level which are amazing. They do an excellent job. And I always told to people there's no point just to dream about spending just a little bit more to hear a difference, because there's not a huge difference. If you want to hear a difference that's undeniable, you have to jump big. Unfortunately, I knew it too. So that's how we ended up with an option that you can see here. Yes, of course, many people could say, why didn't you buy this? Why didn't you buy that? First, we wanted to build an Audiotech Fisher demo car, full Audiotech Fisher demo car. And that almost managed to happen, except the amplification that you can see over there, because most of the amplifiers don't fit. They are big, they are wide, the terminals are on the side, so you don't have enough room for wiring, and I didn't want to lose much space from the boot. So what we ended up with is what you can see over there is a steel rack that holds 7 amplifiers. As you can see, we have 6 monoblocks. Let me put the phone down here, and it's not going to shake. There you go. So we have 6 monoblocks and 1 stereo amp in the middle. So the layout is very logical. On the left-hand side, you have mid bass, mid, and tweeter starting from the side inwards, and symmetrical on the other side. The right-hand side amplifier starts with the right mid bass, right mid range, right tweeter. And the middle one is a stereo amp from Micro Precision. That's the 5 series stereo amp. And that runs a pair of super tweeters in the car for the very high frequency range, because we wanted to try something that many people do Far East now. It almost looks like it's a trend, and we have built many cars with super tweeters in the last couple of months. And those people who want to hear a different presentation on the top end, when people want to hear just an extra layer of depth, which is there in the recording, but it's really difficult to reproduce in a car, especially with conventional tweeters. You need something like an air motion tweeter or a ribbon that can deliver a whole different level of detail. So that's why we needed a stereo amp that runs an extra pair of hidden tweeters. We will get into the cabin and I will explain what's happening at the front. And there you go. Now the lights went off because they are wired up to the tailgate, and yeah, it timed out. But I'm gonna link in a picture right now and we will talk about it. From the picture you will see better what's behind the rack. Behind the rack there's a lot happening, you can see right now. It's a bit insane, to be fair. I think I was sitting in the spare wheel well for 3 days to wire all of that up. I was sitting down there, the sub was taken out. I had a plate at the bottom of the spare wheel well with a big blanket. I went in there like into a little chicken hut, And I was measuring up the wires one by one and handing them out to Eddie. Eddie was making the cables up, handing them back, and literally it took us 3 days, 3 full days just to do the wiring, the power cables, signal cables, speaker cables, control cables, remote cables. So this car is somewhat insane. You don't see it. You don't see it when you look at it from the back of the car. But when the when the rack opens up, then you see how much we have in there. So as you can see on the picture on the left-hand side, we have the battery, factory battery. That's the only battery we have in the car, and an additional factory, small, tiny little battery, like probably like 20 amp hour, tucked away at the right-hand side of the boot. But that's the only battery power that we have in the car. Yes, we could squeeze in something else, but it's really difficult in an OEM platform. And in order to get the power stable, you can see on the right-hand side, we have a small rack, welded rack for 3 pieces of equipment. So over there, you can see a Helix P6 that runs extra small components, rear field speakers and a center field in the car. And we also have a P1 in the rack, runs the subwoofer. And on the top of that, we have a micro precision DC-DC power stabilizer. That stabilizer literally is solid up to 100 amp current draw, and you can select the voltage that you want to maintain up to that level. So this system is set to 14 volt, but you could set it even higher. And even if the factory battery runs at like 11 point something, even if the voltage drops, the whole system is stable. It never moves. There's no other solution in an OEM platform to achieve anything like this. You would need many batteries, lithium batteries, a huge bank in order to achieve that. But as I said, we don't have space for that. So this stabilizer is amazing. It literally runs 9 amplifiers, the DSP, everything together. And people freak out because, oh, that's a lot of gear. But the actual current draw on this system is not that frightening. On moderate listening levels, I'm looking at like 10, 15 amp. And even at peaks, we are drawing like 30, 40 amp because the system is very, very efficient. Even if we have all this equipment in the car, it's required because we run fully active. And yes, the amp rack with the 7 amplifiers with the 6 monoblocks take up lots of space. I mean, it doesn't take too much space up from the boot, but it looks like we have a lot happening. In that amp rack, I could have fitted maybe 2 4-channel amps, but it was really difficult to see how that could happen. And this was the only logical way that could fit into the car. And also, I was looking for an amplification solution that could show a difference that I talked about earlier. And these amps truly do show something very, very special. This way that we run monoblocks, we have such control over every single front-end speaker and such separation that I've never heard before. Yes, there are many other solutions. Yes, we were looking at Audio Wave. They have stunning amplifiers, but in order to have 8 channels in such a tiny little confined space, that would have been very, very difficult. Brax also has the graphic range amps. They also have the matrix amps, but they are huge. They take up a lot of space. Then you also have to think about heat dissipation. So you get to the point where you really struggle. You have to sacrifice a lot more from the practical part of the boot, and I didn't want to do that. After the Honda that I had for 8 years, many of you know, that car was literally no limitation and the whole trunk was sacrificed for the audio. In this one, I wanted something that could go beyond the quality level of that car, but keeping it practical too. So that's how it all came together. And you can see in the middle that we also have the power distribution, which was the only place where we could fit the power distribution so we could get to all the fuses through this key hatch, because that's a requirement for competition that we have to be able to get to the fuses within a short time. I think it's 1 or 2 minutes. And it's that easy. You just fold the armrest down and the fuses are right there, while the subwoofer can still play through the amplifiers. So that's another thing that I need to mention. because quite a few people were asking me why I left gaps between the amplifiers. Let me open it again, then it looks a bit prettier. Because then the lights are going to come up. Here we go. I had to leave gaps because otherwise the subwoofer wouldn't function. The subwoofer from that location has to be able to play into the cabin. Yes, it would be definitely better. We would have better transfer function into the cabin if we had a bigger opening, like if we customize the parcel shelf, and it could be, but I wanted to keep the car at a point where it's really not cut up completely. I mean, yes, we already had the sacrifice to cut it up for the IB subwoofer, but other than that, nothing else, nothing major was done. Even that amp rack is bolted to factory points at the bottom, 4 factory points, and on the top we just had to fit 2 rib nuts, and that's it. The battery is bolted to factory points, and even the small rack with the additional Helix P6, P1 and the DC-DC stabilizer, they all bolt into factory points. So yes, it was amazing to achieve that. Lee helped me from Platinum In-Car to weld the steel frames. Even the DSP is on a steel frame bolted to factory points. And I think we only had to add 1 more rib nut for that too. And that was about it. So it was really not that drastic in here, considering how much went into it. And then this way, that panel is in. That has acoustical cloth with many holes on it, and the sub can breathe through, and it can still play even if I have stuff in the trunk and I have amazing low end that not many cars can deliver. It's definitely something people have to experience, then they will understand, and they won't be able to question why would you do that, Pete? Why? Yeah, I know. Yes, outside of the car when we play music, there's a fair amount of vibration underneath the car because we have the heat shield underneath, and that picks up the vibration. So outside of the car, when we turn it up loud, yes, plenty of buzzes and rattles, but inside we don't hear any of that. So yeah, it's amazing how this can work so well. So that's the back end DSP amplification. I showed you what went into it, and then now we have to look at what's in the cabin. So at the back we have rear speakers in factory locations. Well, almost everything will be in factory location. You have a pair of Brax ML3 widebands running in factory location behind the grills, where we used to have the Burmeister speakers, right? Although here in the back door, you also have an additional tweeter. You could fit a small tweeter. There's a tweeter around here and the mid-range over there. These cars can house a 4-inch driver from factory, and if you want, and to be fair, I advise to have a 4-inch driver, especially at the front, to have a better integration to the mid-bass. We'll look at that in a second. But for the back, it was just so easy to fit the ML3 with a small conversion. We just had to fit rib nuts in the factory points, because originally this car comes with like rubber bunks, and the speakers just lock into those, which is not the most firm way of mounting speakers, but at the same time it isolates the speakers, but they can also rattle. So we took them out, fitted rib nuts, bolted them in. This way it's way more rigid and less resonance, cleaner mid-range. That ML3 runs wideband all the way up to like 14K and a bit of EQ work. Even tweeterless, it does exactly what I need for rear field duty. And we have different presets where they can run normal when I have rear passengers, or the rear speakers can also run differentially. I talked about it many times in many other videos. So basically in the DSP, I can program the signal that the rear speakers don't play anything mono. They only play the stereo content, and it sounds like an effect speaker. It gives you more ambience, more room information in the car. And again, this is something you gotta experience. I can't talk about it, why you would want it. When you hear it, you can make the decision yourself. I may have to show you the power distribution from this angle, or I have to show you a picture where you can see how we have access to the fuses in there. And here at the front, again, nothing for the eyes. So for the first year, we had a plug-and-play system in this car with the Stag plug-and-play Mercedes upgrade. We had 4-inch mid and a tweeter running semi-active. So that was only running those two speakers on a single channel. But because they are relatively close, and actually the distance of them from the listener is also pretty well aligned physically, even without the ability to be able to time align the mid-range and the tweeter separately, they worked very, very well. So just because people say that you gotta run fully active if you want to have a good result, in this car you can get away with it and you can get amazing results even without it. But after that, for Eurofinals in 2023, April, we wanted to complete a crazy system that now we are showing to you. And we had a Brex ML3 at the front too, and the Brex ML1 in the housing at the sail panel. That was probably the easiest upgrade. We had to gut out the whole mechanism that the factory has, because the tweeters can rotate out, light up, do all those fancy things. So that's all gone. This way we could have space for a Brex ML1, which is a very capable full-size tweeter. It's not like a tiny little upgrade that you put in there like an 18mm tweeter. Many people know what the Brex ML1 is capable of. It's a stunning driver. It does an amazing job. And the ML3 below that also did an amazing job. It played low enough to have great integration to the mid bass in the factory location. But a couple of months ago, we made a change. Not because I needed it or the car or the system needed that change, but an opportunity came up where yes, it's good to have friends and good to have competitors who support each other. And I managed to get hold of a pair of Z Studio from Micro Precision, the original Z Studio. And this might be one of those rare opportunities that I may never be able to find another one, because Thomas is now making the new generation of the Z Studio speakers. He managed to figure out how to make the cone, because the person, Mr. Gerlich, who used to make the cone for Thomas, unfortunately passed away during COVID. And that was an uncertain time, a pretty long time, when we didn't know whether there would be a follow-up for the speakers. And I know I could have used many other mid-range here. I could have used even the Ekuton C100 AM, which is my favorite mid-range currently on the market. I truly call that mid-range a reference mid-range. And one day it may end up here too. But at the beginning, we wanted to keep this car at the front with speakers that is more accessible to people. We didn't want to throw crazy money on speakers just for the sake of spending more and more money. You can always spend more money. We wanted to show to people what you can do with that level of lineup. And many people heard it for almost a year. They could hear what it was doing. So now we have the Micro Precision Z Studio, and you can see through the grills. You can just see a bit of shine of the cone. It is a very specific cone, a very unique method, the way this cone is made. The moving mass of that mid-range is absolutely silly. So it's very transient, very detailed and natural. And of course, many people can ask the question, Pete, so what improvement did you get with this compared to the Brex ML3? And I gotta say that nothing really. Probably that's not the answer what you were looking for, but the thing is, when you already have the same frequency range played by different speakers, because in the car, it's not about the price tag of a speaker, it's all about the location and the application of a speaker. So acoustically, that location and the given application that the speaker is mounted on the door card, it comes with characteristics that a speaker change is not going to change. So the characteristics are still the same, and until the speakers play in the same range, when you already have such a great result, you are playing up at a very high level, what the ML3 from Brex was delivering already, then it's difficult to exceed that. And it just shows that the ML3, which is one of my favorite 3-inch mid-range drivers too, very musical, very dynamic and sensitive, compared to many other 3-inch mids, it was doing amazing. And yes, the Z Studio is working just as great. As I say, the only speaker that one day I may try, if I can fit, because to be fair, The space behind the door card is very limited. That would be the Accuton C100 AM. That would be worth to try. And any of you who are playing your car audio at a really high level, I highly recommend to try that mid-range. It's my favorite part of the whole freeway set from Accuton Automotive. That mid-range is just so dynamic, so sensitive. It shows so much. The attack on that in the mid-range is just, we built many cars with those mids, and it's instant identity. When you have a car with those mids where those are installed well and tuned well, I can tell in every car that it has that driver, because that's the only thing that can deliver that. But again, how much difference is? Not crazy from the level what this car is doing, but there's still, room for improvement. Okay, so tweeter, mid-range, factory locations, mid-bass. That was the other major part where I decided to go with this car. Because many people know that I absolutely hate mid-bass in the door. I'm really sorry guys, I know. Sometimes I sound big-headed when I really push the buttons for people to get mid-bass out of the door, but it's just not an environment that's ideal for a speaker playing mid-bass between like 50 to 400 hertz or even higher. If you run two-way, I have many videos where I showed how big acoustical problems you end up with, and it's difficult to work around it. You can't fix it with a DSP. But the most important part in a system for me when it comes to mid-bass performance is getting rid of all the buzzes, all the rattles. And the car is beeping, so we turn that off. It's a bit annoying. Hopefully it's not playing through the video too obviously. So for me, when it comes to mid-bass, the most important part is to play every single note without buzzes and rattles. I only want to hear the music out of the speaker. So in many Mercedes cars from like 2013 onwards, like the SL we shared a couple of months ago, that already had mid-bass in the firewall. Then this S-Class came out as a 2013 design as well. And after that, C-Class, E-Class, and many others came out with the very same speaker layout. There are few installers that run away from this platform because they say if you have a speaker behind the carpet at the front, then you just can't play music. It's like putting a carpet or a curtain in front of your mouth. It's not gonna play. And yes, if we go down here, you can't see the speaker other than just the grill on the top. So we have the carpet in front of it. Of course, we did a slight modification and we got rid of the mass-loaded vinyl and the foam that was on the carpet. So now we only have literally just the really thin carpet in front of it. That's it. And there you have an ML8. A Brax ML8 on each side that's mounted on the strongest part of the car, on the firewall. What that results in is something spectacular. Whenever I demo the car, and if you have a chance to sit in it, we will end up towards the end of the demo playing something quite dynamic on levels that many people have never experienced. Other cars, even at like 40% of the volume scale, what this car is capable to deliver, they would already fall apart. Their doors would fall to bits. And that's one of the things that I don't like in the competition scene where, fair enough, sound quality is not about blasting music loud, but at the same time, most of the people and most of our clients want to experience music at loud levels too. At realistic concert levels, sometimes you want to lose yourself, you want to clear your mind, you don't want to hear your thoughts, you just want to hear music. And sometimes you have to turn the system up for that. And most cars with mid-bass in the door will start to have insane amount of buzzes, rattles, and they never have, even if you get rid of the buzzes, you can never have that controlled kick that you can feel on your chest. And that's what many people cry for, many people want to achieve. So in this car, that part is that easy. Even the factory speaker that we had in the small little upgrade we had, that was doing insane results. And most people believe that we were using something custom, something prototype from like one day. I have to bring it up because that was so funny. One day we had one of our Patreon guys down here listen to the system with the first iteration when we had the Burmeister drivers in the firewall. He heard it, he was amazed how much upfront bass we had with tight kick and controlled bass, and he asked what we were running, because at the point we didn't share it. And Eddie just said, oh, we got, 10-inch prototypes from Acoustic Elegance, like a subwoofer we have at the back. And of course, anybody can believe that when you are not used to the performance level of what this system was doing. And he believed it until I showed the driver, and he was amazed how it's possible. The reason how it's possible is because it's mounted on the strongest part of the car, which is the firewall. It's rock solid. It's like, honestly, it's like a concrete wall, just out of several layers of steel. And it's difficult to tell whether it's an IB application or sealed. I think in these cars it's more like sealed, because it's using the air cavity between the sandwich firewall. You have 2 layers of steel, and then you also have a hole that breathes into the chassis rail forward. So you have a hole that on passenger side we managed to extend and make it a bit larger. But even without the extension of that hole, the driver's side mid-bass still plays down very low, and we have solid response. That's functional response from like 40 hertz. They play lower, but it's not quite functional, not as controlled. And we don't even need to play that low. Those people who heard this car, I always demo it at the end without the subwoofer. I turn the subwoofer off in the car, and people can hear what a pair of 8-inch drivers in this car can deliver, and how seamlessly they can integrate to the mids in the car, how they disappear, and you hear everything from the top of the dash. So just because few installers say that this is a stupid idea, I can attest the opposite. I can show it, people can hear it. It's very, very, very doable. And I'm not the only one who says that globally, who have used Mercedes platforms. It's definitely special. So, mid-range installation was easy, tweeter installation was easy, mid-bass wasn't easy. That was a good 30-hour job. But considering how many hours it takes to install mid-bass in other cars on this level to get these results, some of you remember our Insignia project. In that one, I spent 7 days installing mid-bass. Then in the Amarok, where we have a pair of Micro Precision 7 series, we spent 80 hours only on the mid-bass. That's just mad, and I wanted to stay away from it. So we only spent 40 hours in this car, and yeah, the results are quite something. So these are the factory locations with the ML1, currently with the Z Studio 100 with the 4-inch mid, and the Brex ML8 each side of the front in firewall location. But we also have a pair of super tweeters. So that's something I didn't show for a year to anybody. Now I'm just going to point it out. I'm not going to show how it was installed. It was very tricky. But we have a pair of super tweeters right there on the top of the pillar underneath the airbag logo. That was tricky. It's playing through the headliner material. We had to take the plastic away, we had to take the foam away, and just carefully keep the headliner cloth so the tweeter can play through it. You see just a tiny bit of indentation right there underneath the airbag, little plastic. Why did we need a super tweeter in this car? Well, first of all, there are many reasons. Let me shut this door. So when you run an OEM system, you have to stick to the factory locations. And as you can see, I go wide angle. This is my driving position. From driving position, now with wide angle actually is cheating. It shows like the tweeter is more on axis to you, and it's not. The tweeter is at 70 degrees off from you, something like that. And I knew that from driver's side, the top end extension would be very tricky. Yes, you can do a lot with DSP, you can do plenty of EQ work, but then that's not going to help the passenger, because the passenger is going to get a hell of an amount of top end. So in order to deliver the top end, I thought, okay, why don't we try an extra pair of tweeters in the car that can be crossed really high, above like 10 kilohertz. Running a super tweeter is not about playing things above 20 kilohertz, because we don't hear anything above 16, 17K. Most people get shocked when they go to a hearing test
And some people above the age of 45, 50, they don't even hear anything above 12, 13K. But having a super tweeter is not just about the extension. So in this car, both the Brex ML1 and the super tweeter from Mundorf, we use a pair of Mundorf AMTU 40W 3.1, which are currently only available through us. Many people can buy different type of Mundorf AMTs or from many other manufacturers, but the ones we use with the small body without the faceplate, that's only available through us. And shortly I will also have news for you guys, because we have something exciting coming, and you will be able to try something new. Some of the guys from Patreon already know what's coming. Now we are close, but I only want to announce it when I have solid news for you. But so when you have air motion tweeters, it's not just about the frequency response, how high they play, because they definitely play higher than the Brex ML1 in an ideal environment. The car is not one of those. And in this car, none of the tweeters play higher than the other. They both play up to 19K, and that's just perfectly enough. Most tweeters don't even do much above that in a car. But the resolution is a different story. Any tweeter can measure the same up to, 18, 19K. You can have a $20 tweeter that can measure, and you can EQ to the same curve, but they won't sound the same. When it comes to resolution, when a tweeter is able to separate layers of micro details and really open up the stage depth, that's a different story. So the ML1 is doing an amazing job, but I showed it to many people in this car what it's like when you have the super tweeters running, because we have different presets for that. Because for pure competition, I can't use the super tweeters in the car because they are not factory location, right? But when you have the super tweeters, just an extra level of stage depth just opens up, and it's undeniable. You can tell when they run, and I can't live without them. It's difficult to live without, to be fair, without the performance of air motion tweeters. If you are looking for that type of resolution, if you want a laid-back presentation, then maybe it's not for you, because this car is definitely not about being laid back. I didn't want to build a car where people say that, yeah, it's easy to listen to, but it's not quite realistic. I wanted to build a car where you can hear every single detail from the recording, where you can hear the mouth of a singer, how dry that mouth was, or the tiny details on the drum sets and the instruments, especially on brass instruments. There can be a level of detail that most cars cannot deliver. And I think this is one of the reasons why people far east love to install systems with super tweeters, because they have a different culture where they listen to a lot of instrumental music, where they have a lot of strings, a lot of detail, and there's no other way to deliver that other than with super tweeters. Not the PA style super tweeters, but the super tweeters that have better resolution. And to me, the Mundorf AMTs definitely do that. That's instant. Again, instant identity. It's undeniable when you have a car with those tweeters. So that's how the front end came together. Oh, the only thing I didn't show to you is the controller. So we can run the system from the factory head unit. Let me just show you that. When we can play of the factory head unit, we have CD player, SD card that I never used. It's funny. We also have USB down here. So I can play lossless from a USB. That's what we use for competition. Come on, focus, that's it. And then we have a control panel here. So this is where I have two controllers. I have the conductor for the Brex that can control master level that you can see on this level. Then we have sub level, I can control the subwoofer at the back. Then I have tone control. I can also have a master EQ on bass. Oops, and now I muted it. If you press it for like more than a second, then it can mute the system. So bass, then we get the tone control. So purple, if it shows up purple, it's a bit bluey on the camera. That's bass. And then if you press and hold it for a second, that goes to treble. You can set the frequency where you use the tone control as a shell filter at the bottom end and on the top end. And some of the recordings are so bad that you have to adjust it. So you have technically a bass and a treble controller. You can turn it 6 dB down or up as a shell filter. So I can run that from the Brex, and then I have presets. This is where I have my presets, and I can change different sound profiles depending on what we want to show to the to the passengers in the interior. Then we also have a URC.3 controller for the P6 that runs rear speakers and runs center field. So with the mode, I can switch between running the rear speakers normal or differential, and I can set the level for them as well. You can set the level of the rear speakers. I set this one up on the DSP for that. And then with the other one, I set this as a subwoofer. Many of you know who uses URC.3. If you use a subwoofer output, you can program that to the Control 2. But even if I have subwoofer patched in the DSP, I use it for the center speaker, so I can also set the level of the center speaker. Once you turn it down to 12 o'clock, you don't hear it anymore. Only if I mute everything else, then you can just about hear the center field. But this is where I can use it for daily demonstration to people what it's like to have a physical center speaker, because this car comes with a center speaker location as well that most of the times I don't use. It's literally just for demonstration for those customers who have either a two-way system, but they have a center location in their cars, or they have a mid-range location in a factory layout where the mid-range is down low and it can be blocked by the passenger legs, or it's not quite ideal. And that's where for daily systems we can utilize the center field, but you need a center speaker algorithm, which Helix has, and it works pretty good. Or many guys know that a couple of months ago, Riven, an American company, brought out their own device for center field, and they say that it works even better than the Helix. Hopefully one day we will try that too. We will see. So that's pretty much where we are with this complex system, and we are at 47 minutes. Peter can talk. I told you that this is going to be a long explanation video. Hopefully you are still here with me. I know this system and this explanation, long video is not for everybody. Most people spend probably like 5-6 minutes and they skip or they leave. But those of you who are still here, you are the ones who share the same passion as me, and this is the reason why Pssound was formed, because I wanted to be able to build insane audio systems that can transform the whole listening experience. And many people don't believe that we can have better listening experience in a car than in a home environment. It is very doable. It's a more intimate space. It's only you, especially if you don't have passengers. You're isolated from the world, and you can listen to music in any way you like. You're not limited by neighbors. You're not limited by the family, kids running around in your house. And we can create something that can blow people's mind away, even those who have had 6-digit home audio systems in their houses. We can show what's possible in a car. Yes, maybe I have to mention, because the question is going to come up and I don't want to answer everybody. Pete, how much is this system? Right? Not cheap. Not cheap. Nothing is cheap these days. And yes, this is pretty much how high we can go. Yes, we could spend more money on amps. We could spend more money on speakers. It can never end. You could use like the Accuton Automotive Diamond series, which speakers cost an absolute insane level. But currently, this system with our time, because we are way more than 300 plus hours into the installation of this, that's how much went into it to this level. And the equipment, as you can see, these micro precision amplifiers are not cheap. Brex DSP, all the speakers and everything else that's in the car. Currently, this system is closer to 50 grand pounds. So yeah, in dollars, over 60, euros 60 as well. Yeah, dollars maybe 65. That's where this system is. And yes, now you may be like, oh my God, Pete. Oh, I know. Oh, even I'm getting shivers right now, honestly. When did I ever think that I would have a car and a system like this? It's honestly, many of you know where I started. Where I started at home in a double garage, and this is now the very personal side of this project that I'm gonna just have a couple of moments of. I came from Hungary with a backpack, and I came to UK to start a new life, and I worked my ass off as a sound engineer. I've done everything in my power to make a difference when it comes to listening experience, and I'm doing it, and I will be doing it all my life. I just can't live without it. I can't change a profession. This is my life, and this is the testimony that with hard work you can achieve insane things that you would never think you could ever have. So those people who say that, Pete, I can never have a car like this, I can never have an audio system like this, stop it. Stop it. It's not true. You can have it. I could have it. You can have it. It's just hard work and dedication. Yes, it's a lot of money, but we talked about it with many of my customers who get pretty exclusively, expensive systems from us. Think about it. If you have addictions, if you smoke and you drink, you can easily spend in UK, because it's not cheap. You can spend, let's say, £400 just on ciggy and alcohol if you have a couple of drinks, or even more. But let's just say £400 a month. That goes very, very easily in this country. In a year, that's almost 5 grand. If you look at a project like this for the duration of, like, let's say 5 years, 5 times 5 grand, that's 25 grand. From that money, you can have amazing systems, and then you can carry the equipment onboards into your new car. You just have to install it, and you can enjoy it. So it's not impossible, but when you spend, just £10 every day just on addiction, or if you do gaming, or if you do car performance, you can spend way more than this. Some of the guys who are into car performance and they mod their cars, suspension, wheels, engine, all those things, they can spend way more than that. Or if you are into home audio, 50, 60 grand, it doesn't go far. You buy a pair of speakers, amplification, preamp, whatnot, cables, it goes so quick. Some guys spend millions on their home audio systems. Now that's a different serious level. In a car, there's a point where I also find that you just don't need to go any further. And where this car is right now is pretty much that point. I don't know what else we could do to this car to make it better. Yes, we can play around trying different speakers, but what this OEM platform is doing right now is truly special. We took it to Germany last season to 2 competitions, and when we competed in Aya for the first time, which Germany has a different competition format, I was there because of Emma, and they had a joint event, and they asked me to compete in Aya as well. And I was like, okay, why not? I don't know the format, but at least I may learn something new, what music they play, what expectations they have. And in my OEM class, out of, I think, 5 or 6 cars, we managed to win with this S-Class. And when I was called to go out, they said that my sound score was something like 176, which didn't say anything to me because that was the first time I competed in that format. Of course, the other competitors understood it, and you could hear their reaction as well. And now I asked the organizers, I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? And they said that, Pete, that was the highest sound score out of all the classes, all the cars today. So, yeah, it's pretty special. From an OEM platform where you don't have customized dash, you don't have customized pillars, you don't have door enclosures or IB, mid-bass in the kicks, in enclosures or in true IB. Everything is factory location in this car except, of course, the back. But what this system is doing is something that everybody has to experience. On this note, I'm going to finish this now because it's turning into something insane. Hopefully you loved it. Feel free to share it. Feel free to comment and spread the word of car audio, because, yeah, many of us love it. And people have to hear cars like this. That's the only way to convert even everyday people to understand why we do it. And then they can't deny that it is definitely
something that's worth doing for those who are audiophiles. You know what I mean, guys, if you're still with me. I gotta mention, if you wanna see behind the scene content, how this was built, the daily struggles we had with this last year, we have over 10 plus updates of this showing the little tricks, then please check out description, check out Patreon channel we have, where we share insane amount of knowledge. And then now if you join, if you're new, you get access to more than 3.5 years worth of content as of 2024 April, as we write now. If you watch it in the future, then you will get access to even more content, and you can learn a lot on that platform. We have weekly topics, we have RT evaluations, so you can see what's expectable or expected from given speaker locations in cars. Then you will learn a lot how to plan and design a system in your own cars as well. I'm going to leave it here. As I said, I will have another video showing what we did to the doors and how that measured up before and after. Other than that, hopefully I will see you in Salzburg between the 18th and 20th of April. And we will have competitions in UK during the season. So watch out on Pssound Facebook page and Instagram. I share it as much as I can, guys. Hopefully I will also go to Germany once or twice with this car. And now I can also reveal that on the 1st of June, I will be in Italy at Paris meeting. If you want more detail of it, I can send you a link to the event. It's a very special event in Italy, or you guys who are in Italy, I'm coming with this car. So I'm gonna make it happen. I had to shift things, including my training program that I had for Australia, which had to shift. So you will see me in Italy as well, close to Milan. You will be able to see this car and hear this car over there as well. So on that note, I'm going to leave it here. Hopefully you liked it, guys. As I said, feel free, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't been subscribed. And I will bring you more crazy car audio stuff as soon as I can. Take care.